G'day Sharpies, I'm Baz, this is iSharpen, and today I'm sharpening lots of things actually. I'm going to make a few movies today, but for starters we're going to do some filleting knives, fish filleting, martinis. I'm going to do them at 12 degrees, which is pretty sharp, and we'll see how they go, so feel free to watch. Now these are often flexible. This one's not too bad. This one's a little bit more, no, they're both kind of stiff. So if you don't have a long knife jig, right, I've got two of them. I've got a really long one, and I've got a medium one that I've chopped the ends off to make it possible to use on medium length flexible knives. So these are actually, they're called long knife jigs, but they're really more for flexible because, as you saw in my gigantic steak knife video, this will hold any size knife. Doesn't matter how big it is. So don't be misled. And let's say you don't have a long knife jig, then you can still use these, and I'll show you just quickly. What happens is, if you're sharpening a flexible knife, I'll bring you in closer. Sharpening a flexible knife, then what happens is it tends to, well, flex, right? And that can affect the angle, but not too much, just a little bit. So you can still do it on this. Now, just got to lift that up so that we're not too... The problem with thin knives like this is that as you clamp down into from the spine, it's so low, like I'll go to an extreme. It's so low that the jig actually scrapes on the wheel before the knife gets there. So you've got to lift it up to that. Sometimes can be the maximum angle, is the maximum angle. So I'm going to try for 12 per side, and see how we go. I've just faced my wheel, so it's going to be perfect. No one's going to complain or cry. And I've set my angle to 12 degrees, 220 on the wheel. Now let's see. Oh, that wants to lean over a bit more. So what you can see is that is already touching the wheel. That's going to touch the wheel, I know, because, well, yeah, it will. So what I have to do is I have to bring the clamp up higher so that it's further away from the edge, or come in over here, because down here obviously it's closer to the edge and that's going to touch for sure. Over here it's not, but if you come over here, then you're really flexing, right? So, well, actually, just while I'm here, if you are going to use this this clamp and it's the only one you've got, and you want to try and get to the point where it's not flexing too much, especially on the tip, then you can clamp it anywhere along here, right? So what you want to do is you want to clamp it as close to the tip as possible, because here is a point of solid between here and here. So in here, it's going to flex less, whereas over here it's going to flex more. But if you bring it in here, then the tip flexes more. So what I try and do is try and favor the tip so that you have 2 points of support that are going to support the whole knife. So this point here is a point of support, so it's not going to bend right here on the edge. So try and get as close to the tip as possible. But having said that, you can't really get too close because now the clamp's starting to hit. So, you know, let's just try and clamp it as close to the spine as possible. As tight as possible, and then see what happens. And the way you can tell quickly is to just put a bit of marker onto the back of the jig. Oh, let's just rip that off. It's getting a bit old. I put my tape inside the jaws instead of taping up on each knife. And on this side. And you can tell just by doing a dry run, and that's not going to touch. So that's okay. Let's see what angle we've got there. Oh, and that's about 12. So that should work. All right, now, if you are limited by having only the standard knife jig, just try not to press down too much. Just let it sit lightly on the wheel here, and it will rub eventually. Let the stone do the work, right? And now, because I've just faced that, that's extremely smooth. We don't want very smooth when we're starting off. So I'm going to roughen it up a bit with my 80 grit diamond plate. And what this does is it raises the grains on the wheel just temporarily so that you can get a coarser grit. It will eventually wear down, and on the Japanese knives they actually wear the wheel down smooth by themselves. You don't need to re-grit. So again, we make sure that we're parallel on the rest and just touch it lightly. And I'm pretty sure that did not touch the rest. The jig, sorry. Nice. Let me show you. So that's a pretty steep angle. And you can see that shiny bit at the top here. That's the old bevel. And my coarse is underneath. So that should come out real sharp. I'll give it another pass on this side. So again, lightly touching. Let the wheel do the work. The abrasion just running on that steel, even with a light touch, is still going to do the job. You don't have to press very hard. Again, checking my marker, no touching, so that's a good thing. Again, don't bend that tip, press lightly. Beautiful. Beautiful. Occasionally touch the wheel, see that feels really smooth already. Feels rough again. And let's try this side. Beautiful. One more. Now, engagement is the name of the game on YouTube, so I want to ask you a question. Do you mind that I leave this at the standard speed of how I'm actually doing it? There are two viewers, I think, on this channel. One viewer has a machine or is thinking about a machine and wants to know exactly how fast I'm doing it. Am I really rocking it, fast like some people do, or do I go slowly? I'm more of a slowly guy. I'm an ex-welder, as some of you already know, and so I'm treating this like I'm welding, and so I'm very carefully moving it evenly and steadily. Or is this boring to you, but you still like it, but it's boring, and you'd prefer to use the sped up versions, time lapse, fast motion. I'm kind of I just want to see how you do it guy. I want to see real speeds. When I was learning and trying to get a feel for how to do this properly, a lot of the videos that I was watching were sped up really fast because they figured that everybody was bored. Well, I don't know. I think I'm going to give you guys a little bit more credit than that. You want to see exactly how I do it so that you can replicate these results at home, and everybody can. So let me know how you like it. I can still see some shine on the top, so we're not there yet, but it's looking nice. Had a lot of new subscribers join, so if you're one of those, thank you. I appreciate your subscription. It helps me in all sorts of ways. Today somebody sent me an email offering me free t-shirts because they like my channel size. I said no thanks, I wear these. But it was nice to get the offer. Well, the reason I'm doing this side again so many times is that it's a bit uneven on the bevel. I think this side needs a bit more grinding to bring it back to even. This one is called a Zanelli. Okay, starting to get a burr now. Got an interesting video coming up later this afternoon. So I'm sharpening this at 12 degrees. The next thing I'm going to sharpen is going to be off the scale. So over 100 degrees. What could that be? You'll find out. Okay, we have a burr everywhere now. The bevel's a little bit uneven on this side. I'm not quite sure why. This side's fine. I'll show you what I mean. Right, see, that looks great. You can see how it dips down here and then comes back up here. I've been trying to grind that away, but it's not really happening. It could be that the knife has got a bit of a bend in it, don't know. Not worth fussing over too much. The edge is the main thing. And see here, it's a little bit weird as well, so not quite sure. Could be the fact that it's bending, but it's pretty stiff. I've seen far bendier knives than this. So yeah, but looking good. Great tips as usual. I love good tips. I'll give you a tip. Don't push into the wind. You got a good tip? Okay, that's looking good. The wheel is very smooth, but I'll give it a 320 anyway. At the risk of repeating myself constantly on every video, these are diamond knife sharpening plates. I use them to raise and lower the grain on the wheels. 320 is not what this wheel ends up being. It's this times 3, roughly. And we can tell that because on the stone that they give you with the machine, the Tormek stone, this side is roughly 250 grit, and this side is roughly 1000 grit. And when I use these diamond plates, 80 and 320, it's roughly the same. You can feel that it's very similar. And I prefer this stone. Actually tends to smooth it out too much, and you get shiny and dull bits. I don't like the stone finish, so I prefer the 320 because it leaves a little bit of tooth on the knife, and I think that helps. But if you have a different opinion, I'm sure we'd all love to hear it. No, I'm serious. Tell me what your experience is. So let's finish this one off. Bring you in a bit closer. Oh, just did that side. As you can see, the normal knife jig is doing very well on a flexible knife. You don't absolutely need the wide jigs, but they do help if you've got a really long, like a long flexible cake knife. They're very flexible, and this is invaluable because they become unwieldy. But on the shorter fishing knives, I think it's just fine to use the normal jig, as long as you don't really press down and just let the stone do the work. Beautiful. I'm being very gentle here now. Okay. Good burr all the way along. I think that one's done. Next stage is removing that burr on the honing wheel, and then after that I'm going to remove the root of the burr on my kangaroo tail strop. Now, for those of you who are asking about how the kangaroo tail selling is going, I can sell to Australians, but my export license or permit still hasn't come in. The Australian government is very protective over commercialising kangaroos. They're not scarce or rare, but they are a protected species because they're a native species. So they're very particular about who can sell them to international. They don't want things to get out of control. So fingers crossed, in a few more weeks I'm going to know more about that. So hang around. That came out really nice. Beautiful. Right, swing the camera around. Excuse me, Chili. Beautiful day in Australia. South Australia anyway. Okay. Crank the old girl up. I use chrome oxide bar, which is wax impregnated with the grit. And it doesn't last long, but it leaves a fantastically fine finish. And I always sharpen the back of the burr first. Freehand is fine for this. I'm pressing very lightly, letting the grit do the work. The burr is a jagged edge on the top caused by the grinding, and so I run on my fingernail, and if I can feel the jagged edge, then the burr's still there. This also puts a very tiny 8000 grit micro bevel right on the very tip of the apex, as well as removing all the burr, of course. Should be enough. Let me test. Oh, that is icy smooth. Perfect. No more. And I'll show you that little silvery burr in a second. The silvery edge, that little micro bevel, the 8000 grit. See if we can capture it in the sun. Let's have a look. It's hard to see. Yeah, you can sort of see it right on the very tip. See how it's a bit shiny? Let's try this side. Yeah, you can see it there. Right on the very tip, you can see it's a bit shiny. That is what just happened on the honing wheel. Now, we're not finished though. And I'll show you what I mean by we're not finished. We use the before and after, because I'm still amazed how well these work. And even when I'm not recording, I still do a before and after so that I can test and test and test again. So let's see how this is before the kangaroo strop. Not bad. See how it's pushing, not really behaving perfectly. I mean, it's acceptable, but I think it could be better. So this kangaroo tail, of course, has ridges on it. See those ridges? They grab and rip off the burr. Not the burr, it's the root of the burr, or what some people call the wire edge. It's little tiny amounts of burr that are left in there, and if you leave them in there, then they just come off after a couple of uses, and they wrap themselves around the the edge and cause premature bluntness. Now, it's not critical that you match the bevel exactly. Some say it is. In my experience, it isn't. So what I do is I try and get it close to the bevel. I don't want to be doing it straight up, but I definitely favour the apex. Here's something interesting. So a kangaroo tail, this is the bit that hits the ground. Right, as they bounce off, they push off their tail. And so that bottom of the tail is where these ridges develop. But you'll see that at the top it's kind of smooth, right? So, because that's where it's sort of finished. Now, that's fine because what you're getting, see, very rough up here, very smooth down here. Because what you're getting really is two strops in one. You're getting the roughness here that rips off the root of the burr or the wire edge, and then you can finish it nicely on the smooth. So this is like a two-in-one. I'm using medium pressure, not too light, not too heavy, just what you'd expect. And then maybe when I'm finishing off, I can lighten the pressure a bit, and just in case that helps refine the edge. And oh, not on the back of this one. Where's my other one? The other one's worn out, but I've got the suede here, so just finish it on the suede. Over there. Actually, I might finish it. I like this on the smooth. Somebody asked me how long do these last. Well, I'll just cut into mine, so it depends how you use it, I suppose. They won't last forever, but they're very tough and when treated well. Now let's see if that helped. That's what I'm talking about. Beautiful. So that's how I sharpen a fish filleting knife at 12 degrees and finish it off on the kangaroo tail for that super, super sharp approach. Just for something a little bit more visual. Just beautiful. Magnificent. That's going across the grain as well. How's that? I hope you got something out of that. I enjoyed sharing it with you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, don't be shy. Subscribe, join the team. And if you liked it, hit the like button. I appreciate your view, and I'll see you in the next movie.